David or the lion. But in a few moments, the lion was dead. I think maybe David put his foot up on his chest and said, "Rah!" He had answered an anointing that God placed in his heart, and he found out something about himself. He found out something about himself. The bleating of that sheep triggered something inside him to fight. That's Judah. That's Judah. When that happened, bears tried it again. They didn't do any better than the lions. He killed a bear also. Now he's dead. He didn't even tell his dad about it. What kind of a kid kills a lion and a bear and doesn't think to tell his dad about it? Probably because his dad wouldn't believe him. I don't know. But his dad said, "Here, come on in here, son. I want you to take some cheeses and some raisin clusters and some bread stuff, some supplies to your brethren, because they're down here fighting a battle against the Philistines, and so I want you to take some supplies." He said, "Okay." Here he is anointed to be king of Israel, and his dad sending him to take cheese to his brother. And so he just jumps in his chariot and goes on down there and takes the stuff to the captain of the guard, and he's getting ready. And while he's there, he hears this noise. This big giant comes out on the other side of the hill, and he's a pretty good-sized guy. We don't know how big he is. It's according to how long a cubit is. The smallest way I can get him, the smallest cubit that I can account for, has him being a little over 9 feet tall. The largest cubit has it about 11'6". But after they get over 9 foot tall, it doesn't matter anymore. And so the giant says, "Listen, don't you have a one man over there that's not afraid to fight me? Send your champion and let me and him fight. And we don't have to kill all of both armies right here. Just 2 men and settle this. And if I beat you, your champion, why all of you serve us. And if he beats me, then all of us serve you." Sound like a good deal if you're 9 foot tall. I'm thinking David is probably saying to his brother, "Shammah, get out there and destroy this guy." Maybe to his other brother, "Why don't you go do something?" Well, I tell you what, they wouldn't do anything because they're standing behind their tent flaps with their knees knocking. They were scared to death, and David looks at him and looks at the scared army over there, and his brother comes out and says, "I know what you've come here for. You naughty boy. You've come to see the fight." And David's thinking, "What fight?" And then he said, "Let no man's heart fail because of him. I will go and fight with an uncircumcised Philistine." All I want to know is he circumcised? What that means is he in covenant with God? If he ain't in covenant with God, I can whip him. Because I am. That's how tall he is don't matter. What weapons he's got don't matter. I'm in covenant with God. Something's going on inside of me, and it ain't going on inside of him. And I'm ready to take him on right now. I'll go to him now. Had to get special permission to even go. And then they wanted him to take weapons and armor, and he wouldn't take it. He said, "No, I can't do that. No, let me take what I've got. I tell you what I've got that I can whip him with. I got a stick. I got my shepherd's staff. I got a stick, and I also got a slingshot." That wasn't a beanie flip type. It was the type that are 2 leather straps, and then something like a tongue of a shoe down in the bottom of them between the 2 straps where you put a rock in it. I used to have one when I was a kid. Couldn't hit the side of a barn. But my dad could. My dad could take that thing and swing it around a couple of times like this, and he'd release one of those straps, and that rock would go zing. You could hear it as it went through the air. One time, there was a woodpecker in a tree up there pecking that thing, and Dad threw that thing and hit that woodpecker right in the back of the head and drove his beak into it, and the woodpecker couldn't get out. And so David, he says, I'll go fight him. So he's headed down the mountain now, and he stops down in the valley, and there's a little creek going through there, so he stops and picks him up some rocks. And he gets him 5 good rocks. And he gets one, keeps one out, puts the rest of them in his pocket, and he's headed up the hill. Somebody said, why did he pick 5 rocks? And I've heard such beautiful sermons on this. Well, it was 5 prayers, brother. It was 5 prayers. It represented 5 prayers. And I tell you why there was 5 rocks, because there's 5 of them giants. It was. There was 5 of them all together, and David was thinking today he might get lucky and they'd all show up. And so he picks up one of those rocks, and the giant is over there shouting insults. It looks like if he wanted to fight, he would at least come down and met him halfway, which was at the brook. But he didn't go anywhere. He just stood up there and shouted, and David went to the battle. And so the giant standing up there and said, son, listen, am I a dog? You send a boy up here with a rod, with a stick and some stones to fight against me? And he was so insulted and what have you. And David said, listen to me. You come out here and defied the armies of it isn't us. You defied the armies of the living God. And today, I'm going to kill you. And I'm going to feed your flesh to the fowls of the air today. And he goes heading right on up toward the hill, and now the giant's infuriated. He's so angry, he's probably blind, can't even see David anymore. He's mad. He picks up that big old spear that's like a weaver's beam. I almost made the mistake. You was with me that time. Billy Kaufman preached, and he was talking about that. Said that spear was like a beaver's wing. That's a big thing. It's like a beaver's wing, man. Anyway, he drew this spear back, and he was ready to smite David, and David just whipped that thing around a couple of times till it was just right and let that go, and that hit giant in exactly the right spot, and it dazzled him, and he couldn't see right for a minute. And next thing he knew, his mouth was digging up dirt, and it didn't kill him, but it addled him and knocked him to the ground. And before he could get to his senses, there was a teenage boy standing in the middle of his back, pulling up the locks of his head. He had already told him and promised him. He said, today I'm going to cut your head from off your body. And he didn't even have a sword. Wow. But he did know where he should be able to borrow one in a minute. So he whips out that giant's big old sword, raises it up and whacks it down. The giant has been feeling his mouth digging up dirt. He feels this boy up in the middle of his back, feels his sword coming out of that. Then he felt cold steel on the back of his neck, and after that he never felt anything. And meanwhile, everybody's standing there in absolute shock. The Bible don't say this, but I believe it happened in Hezekiah, the next verse. I think he reached down his hands in them curly locks and picked up that old big head and turned over toward Israel and just held it there. And then a shout went up in the camp of Israel and said, the Lord is with us. Look what he's done through that boy. And whatever anointing all these guys had in the past that had drained out a long time ago through fear suddenly got hosed right back into them by the power of this boy. And they picked up their swords and they chased the enemy and killed Philistines that day till going down to the sun. And you know what? There's some more to that story that I like. I heard, who preached for us this conference last year? Reverend Rutherford. I heard him tell what happened after that, so I'm going to tell you. I don't know if it's in Hezekiah or where it is, but I do know pretty much what happened. The Bible does say that David took that Goliath's armor and put it in his tent. But it said he took his head to Jerusalem. Took his head to Jerusalem. Why would he take his head to Jerusalem? He was chasing all the time. He was with the army who were the chasing Philistines, and they were headed toward Jerusalem. He wasn't doing much fighting. If he's carrying that big old head, probably weighed 40 pounds. And he's carrying this thing and running along beside of him, and he takes it all the way to Jerusalem. Don't you know it's significant that the Bible said he took it to Jerusalem? He can take it where he wants to. It's his. He just felt like going to Jerusalem. I'll tell you why he took it to Jerusalem. Because since he was a boy, he's been mad. The Jebusites still dwelt in the highest part of Jerusalem, in Mount Zion. When Judah took Simeon with him, he beat all those other people, but he was not able to drive out the Jebusites. And when David's a kid growing up and he sees those Jebusites up there and nobody's able to get them out, even this 100 years later, a couple 300 years later, he's mad. And he's thinking as a boy, buddy, there'll be a day when I'll put you out.
Yes, sir.
Why? Because he come from Judah. He's a lion. And the lion is going to take it out. And the lion rose up in that little boy that day. And I tell you where he went. He went up to the top hill of Mount Zion, where the Jebusites are looking over their wall to see him standing down there. And he's hollering, "Hey, you Jebusites! Hey, Jebusites!" They all come out, a bunch of them look over the wall. And he said, "I'm going to destroy you and run you out of there." You're going to do what? You're going to do what? Joshua wasn't able to run us out of here. The whole tribe of Judah wasn't able to run us out of here 200 years ago, or how many long ago it was. And you're going to drive us out of here? Hey, come look at this kid. The crowd gathers up, they're laughing at him. "What are you going to do, kid? I'm going to drive you out of there. Kill all of you. Drive you out." So they're having a big laugh at it. And he said, you know Goliath of Gath? And they said, "Yeah, we know him." And he said, "Well, I killed him today." And so they're five. You hear that, kid? You hear that, kid? Oh, woo! Man, this is the best day they've had in a long time. So David just turned around, picks it up, and said, "Look at here." And he said, "Listen, I can't do it right now. I don't have strength enough, but I'll be back.
I'll be back.
I'll be back."
I'll be back.
"I shall return." Means I'll be back. You know what? It's 21 years later before he did it. But one day, he walked in there to the city that nobody could get into. See, this beautiful for situation is Mount Zion on the sides of the north. It was so situated that you couldn't approach it militarily. They could spot you off, and just a few archers up there could kill any army of any size, as long as they had arrows enough, because there wasn't any way to get in. But through the anointing of God and complete obedience to God, David found a way. And later came in there, and not only did he throw the Jebusites out, but he built his palace there. And right next to the palace, he built a tabernacle. And he set up 24-hour worship. And he praised God and glorified God. And Judah means praise, by the way. And they set up 24-hour teams of singers and dancers before the Lord where they glorified God. And let me tell you something else. You know who was in charge of all those? It was the 24 generals in David's army. They weren't a bunch of sissies. It was a bunch of worshiping men of God. Oh, you know what a real man is? A real man is a man that can say Jesus without wincing. A real man is one that can say